As human beings, our desires have no limit. We want a premium house to live in, the newest phone in our pocket, and everything our neighbor happens to have. But the universe has a glitch. There simply isn't enough stuff, time, or money to give everyone everything. In economics, this problem is called scarcity. Because resources are finite, we are forced to make choices. If you spend your Friday night and your last $20 going out to the movies, you permanently sacrifice the studying you could have done for Monday's exam, or the money you could have saved for rent. Every choice you make has a hidden price tag attached to it, the exact value of whatever you had to give up to get it. That is your opportunity cost. Take that exact same logic and scale it up to 1.4 billion people. The Indian government operates as a massive household facing this same reality. To manage this scale of scarcity, the government uses an annual budget to weigh the cost of new highways and defense against a strictly limited pool of national income. This balance sheet provides the framework for every major national investment, allocating the capital required to outpace global competitors. Mastering these specific columns is the engine India is using right now to shift its position in the global economy. To see how this engine actually works, imagine India's entire national income as a single 100 rupee note. To fund itself, this note breaks apart into specific blocks of revenue. The first chunks are taxes. Out of every 100 rupees collected, 17 come from the Goods and Services Tax, or GST. Another 15 rupees come from individual income taxes, and 15 more are collected from corporate taxes on businesses. But even with government-owned business profits added in, the treasury remains short. To cover the remaining bills, the government relies on debt. 34 rupees out of every 100 comes entirely from internal and external borrowing. Here is where that money goes. Over in the expenditure column, 18 rupees are shared with state governments to keep local infrastructure running. Another 17 rupees are spent directly on central government schemes, funding everything from rural roads to social welfare. 8 rupees go to defense, and 7 rupees are spent on subsidies for food and fuel. But heavy borrowing carries a price. Interest payments alone eat up 20 rupees out of every 100, 1/5 of the entire national expenditure. This high-stakes balance of heavy borrowing and high interest is what keeps the country running today. It is the result of decades of trial and error. In 1947, India inherited an economic vacuum. 2 centuries of colonization had decimated the nation's wealth, leaving its first leaders to rebuild a fractured society with almost no resources. They adopted a mixed economy model, a hybrid blending private capitalism with strict USSR-style state control. The strategy relied on 5-year plans. Instead of focusing on consumer goods, the government poured resources into massive state-funded projects, like these dams, to build a heavy industrial base from the top down. By 1956, the government formalized this grip, locking critical industries like iron and steel under an absolute state monopoly. Private competition was effectively sidelined. This rigid control, combined with the financial strain of border wars and severe droughts, led to decades of stalled growth. India became trapped in the license raj, where private businesses were strangled by endless bureaucratic approvals. The failure of this heavy state control model is what eventually forced India to liberalize its markets in 1991, moving toward the tax and trade-driven engine that powers the current 100 rupee model. In today's mixed economy, massive private conglomerates operate side by side with the state. These corporations now drive a significant portion of national productivity. This surge in private power is built on the legacy of earlier industrial pioneers, who maintained a corporate foothold even during the years of heavy state regulation. But there is a silent predator in this system. While national GDP trends sharply upward, the purchasing power of the average household can decay at the same time. This is inflation. When excessive borrowing or money printing occurs, your savings buy less every year, making the middle class poorer despite the growing economy. The danger is in how the government uses its borrowed trillions. If that money funds infrastructure, the economy grows. But if it is used strictly for short-term subsidies and freebies, inflation can spiral, eroding the very wealth the country is trying to build. Corporate productivity is India's offensive weapon, but managing inflation and national debt is the defense required to keep the system stable. India has already bypassed the United Kingdom to become the fifth largest economy in the world. To reach the number 3 spot by 2030, the government must move its borrowed funds away from immediate consumption and into productive, long-term infrastructure. At its core, the national economy functions like a family budget, a billion-person household trying to keep its expenses below its income while building for the next generation. If the government holds this fiscal line, current growth projections put India on track to reach a $10 trillion GDP by 2035.